are certain factors which compromise the local defense mechanism and lead to lung parenchymal infection. Some of them are a suppression of the cuff reflex, which can be due to coma, anesthesia, or neuromuscular disorders, or injury to mucociliary apparatus like
हमारी स्लाइड भी चेंज कर दें
G.
हमारी स्लाइड भी चेंज
अच्छा अच्छा अच्छा। चेंज हो गई अभी?
यस सर
अच्छा। So the second factor which the slide will not very good. Drama change without no change होगा ना, तो they will speak. जी जी।
Open ya la possibilidad de meter da ya. Da ya meter. Na tulang gerati nomor así.
जब हर यूजर से सिलेक्ट मिट्टी की ना बढ़िया नाम कुछ
Tapi jelas nafas kan.
जी अभी स्लाइड आ रही है?
नहीं सर पहले थी मतलब नहीं
Ya era betul.
So the second factor is injury to mucociliary apparatus, which can be due to cigarette smoking or corrosive gases or certain genetic defects like immotile cilia syndrome, or it can be uh, uh, the accumulation of secretions in the lung parenchyma can affect and compromise the local defense mechanisms like bronchial obstruction or cystic fibrosis, or it can be due to interference with phagocytic and bactericidal action of alveolar macrophages, or can be due to pulmonary congestion and edema. There are certain pulmonary syndromes which we will briefly discuss one by one. There is community acquired pneumonia, healthcare associated pneumonia, hospital acquired pneumonia, aspiration and chronic pneumonia, lung abscess, and pneumonia in immunocompromised patients. Community acquired bacterial pneumonia. So when infections occur in an otherwise healthy individuals in a normal environment, for example, if you got pneumonia while during your stay in home or during your stay in hospital or in hostel, so this is called community acquired pneumonia. Streptococcus pneumoniae is the most common cause of such pneumonia, and the complication of bacterial pneumonia includes this inflammation, then progress to an abscess formation in the lung, or it can progress to inflammation of the pleura with subsequent pus formation, which is called empyema, or it can disseminate in the body through arteries, which is called bacteremic dissemination. Anatomically, there are two forms of bacterial pneumonia. One is bronchopneumonia and other is lobar pneumonia. So if you see in the third figure, when there is patchy involvement of the lung parenchyma, it is called bronchopneumonia, and when whole of the segment or lobe is involved, it is called lobar pneumonia. Like you see here, this is the gross picture of lung, and you see these yellow white areas. This is the patchy involvement of the lung, and the upper lobe and the lower lobe, the lower portion of the lower lobe, it appears normal. This is a bronchopneumonia. And this on the right side of this picture is the involvement of the whole lobe of the lung parenchyma. This is called lobar pneumonia. Similarly, above these gross pictures are the X-ray findings of the same patient. In the first picture on the left side, you see the patchy involvement of this lung parenchyma. This is bronchopneumonia or lobular bronchopneumonia. And on the right side, there is involvement of the whole segment, and this is called lobar pneumonia. But from clinical standpoint, the important thing is the identification of the exact positive agent, whether it's bacterial or fungal, and which type of bacteria or fungi are involved. And second thing is the determination of the extent of the disease. So there are four stages of inflammatory response in lobar pneumonia. In bacterial lobar pneumonia, there are four stages of inflammatory response. One is congestion, red hepatization, gray hepatization, and a resolution. In congestion, it is the first initial stage in which there is a congestion of the blood vessels along with inflammatory exudate, along with which contains neutrophils and lymphocytes. And after congestion, when the blood vessels they are damaged and the red blood cell also come into the lung parenchyma, it is called red hepatization. Hepatization means that the grossly this lung picture will be just like a liver picture, so that's why it is called hepatization, and grossly it will be red, so it's called red hepatization because of the red blood cells. In the third stage, gray hepatization, these red blood cells are lysed and this color of the lung changes from red to gray. And the last thing is the resolution, in which there is growth of the fibroblast which deposit connective tissue.
सर ये रेड हेपेटाइजेशन दोबारा बताओ।
अच्छा, इनिशियल जो कंजेशन होती है इसमें सिर्फ जो फर्स्ट स्टेज है कंजेशन, इसमें जस्ट वास्कुलर कंजेशन होती है। उसके बाद जब इन्फ्लेमेटरी सेल्स एंड न्यूट्रोफिल्स अलोंग विद द रेड ब्लड सेल्स, जबकि ये आपको एल्वियोलाई में नजर आ जाए, जैसे ये पिक्चर जो मैंने अभी मॉर्फोलॉजी में ये आपको नजर आ रही है, ये फर्स्ट पिक्चर जो है, दिस इज रेड हेपेटाइजेशन माइक्रोस्कोपिकली। यू सी दीज आर द एल्वियोलर वॉल्स and inside there is exudate, lymphocytes, neutrophils and red blood cells. So this is a microscopic picture of red hepatization. Hepatization means that grossly the lung parenchyma will look like liver parenchyma. So that's why it's called hepatization. Red is due to the color of the lung at that stage. And the second microscopic picture you see, it is the resolution. You see there is a growth of the fibroblasts. You see these elongated cells, fibroblasts, along with some of the inflammatory cells and the collagen deposition.
Thank you, sir.
So that was the bacterial pneumonia. Second is the community acquired viral pneumonia. The common viral infections include influenza virus type A and B, respiratory syncytial virus, adenovirus, rhinovirus, and now the coronavirus. The mechanism of action is that this virus, it gets entry into the pneumocyte and causes inhibition of the sodium channel. So you see the normally sodium channel, expels 2 sodium out and 3 potassium in. So when it is inhibited, the sodium retained inside, there is influx of water, the cell are swollen and then rupture. So there is damage to the pneumocyte. This damage then releases the different mediators from the inflammatory cells along with the cytokines and chemokines. And the second mechanism is that this virus, when it enters the pneumocyte, it inhibits the host cell messenger RNA translation. So when it is inhibited, there is no protein synthesis. Along with that, this virus also activates caspases. Caspases are certain enzymes which are present in the cytoplasm and mitochondrium of cells in inactive form. And when they are activated, they cause this programmed cell death, which is called apoptosis. So this virus, when it enters the pneumocyte, it causes programmed cell death by activation of caspases. So the third one is healthcare associated pneumonia. It is a distinct clinical entity which is associated with hospitalization of at least 2 days within the recent past. recent intravenous antibiotic therapy or chemotherapy, attending a hospital or hemodialysis clinic, or presentation from a nursing home. So, in summary, it means that when you visit hospital for some minor procedure like for antibiotic therapy intravenous or for chemotherapy or for dialysis, or you are admitted in hospital, but after discharge you develop pneumonia after 2 to 3 days. So this is healthcare associated pneumonia. The other one is hospital acquired pneumonia. Hospital acquired means that you get pneumonia during your stay in the hospital. So that is hospital acquired pneumonia, and healthcare means that you develop pneumonia after your stay in the hospital. So this is hospital pneumonia, pulmonary infections acquired in a course of hospital stay, common in patients with severe underlying diseases or immunosuppression, or patients on prolonged antibiotic therapy, or those which have invasive access like cardiac catheters or intravenous catheters or uh, such things. The fourth one is aspiration pneumonia. It occurs in debilitated patients, in those patients who aspirate gastric contents, whether they are unconscious or during their repeated vomiting. So there is aspiration of the gastric contents through the trachea into the lung parenchyma, which causes the pneumonia. So this pneumonia is specific in a sense that it is partly chemical due to gastric acid and partly bacterial. So, and the other important feature of this pneumonia is that typically more than one organisms are isolated. For example, if you culture the sputum or bronchoalveolar lavage of such patients, so you will isolate more than one organism in such pneumonias. The fifth one is chronic pneumonia. It is caused by Mycobacterium tuberculosis and fungi. Typically, histologically, the chronic pneumonia will be granulomatous. Granulomatous means, do you know what is granuloma? So you see this microscopic picture. This is a microscopic hematoxylin, and you've seen stained picture of a granuloma. Granuloma means it is a collection of epithelioid histiocytes. Epithelioid means epithelial cells. So the histiocytes, they become epithelial-like. So it's the collection of epithelioid histiocytes along with the Langhans type giant cells. You see these elongated cells in the picture. These are the epithelioid histiocytes, and this is, you see, this is a multinucleated giant cell with nuclei at the periphery of the cytoplasm. This is the Langhans type giant cell along with the this inflammatory along with the inflammation. So for granuloma, the important thing is collection of epithelioid histiocytes plus minus Langhans giant cells and plus minus inflammatory cells. So the commonest fungi includes histoplasmosis, blastomycosis, and coccidioidomycosis. जी 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 अच्छा 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 Atau dia panas dia dalam screen satu. Jadi kita tarik. So this is the microscopic picture. The first picture on the left side. This is a microscopic picture of the blastomycosis. You see, this is the spores of blastomycosis. These are budding. This is a large bud and this is a small bud. This is a hematoxylin, and you've seen stained picture of a blastomycosis. This is along on the right side of this. There is another picture, but this is a special stain. We apply special stain on such tissues. So this is the Gomori methenamine silver GMS stain of the fungus, and you see this the budding blastomycosis. This is a fungal infection of the lung. The third picture is that of coccidioidomycosis. This is a large spores which contains these small spores. So this is the histological picture of coccidioidomycosis. And the last picture is that of histoplasmosis. You see, this is a large macrophage. This is its nucleus. It contains small 2 to 3 micrometer organisms. This is the histoplasma. So the diagnosis of chronic pneumonia is by histopathology along with the culture of the tissue or the serologic test which detects the antigen and antibodies that are specific to these antigens, to these organisms. The fifth one is the lung abscess. So it's a local suppurative process that produces necrosis of lung tissue. Staph aureus and Streptococcus pneumoniae are the commonest isolated organisms. The first picture on the top, it is the gross picture of the lung. You see, this is the whole area of the lung is converted into an abscess. So this is a necrotizing pneumonia. Just below this picture, it's an X-ray picture of the same patient, and you see in the right lobe, in the right lower lobe, you see this is the abscess formation. When this abscess erodes the bronchi or bronchiole, so the air comes into that segment, and you see this is a straight line. Above this straight line, there is an air, and below straight line, this is the pus. So these are called air fluid levels. It is a characteristic.
एक्सक्यूज मी सर
जी जी
सर स्टूडेंट्स ट्राई कर रही है उनको अलाउ नहीं कर रहा
Tapi você por mim que eu não tinha na verdade. Tá bem. Não, desdoro que o bel bel ela o co. هذيك طب لو ده كان ممكن يبقى كده هذه يبقى باري باري لازم حلو this is the X-ray picture. It shows the air fluid level, which is characteristic of the lung abscess. Just left to this X-ray picture, it is the histological pictures, and you see sheets of the neutrophils, fibrin, and necrotic material, which fills the lung parenchyma. So this is a lung abscess. The causative organism, they are introduced into lung parenchyma and cause lung abscess by the following mechanisms. Either it is the aspiration of the infective material, or there is already primary lung infection which is not so severe. It causes the lung abscess. And third is the septic embolism, when the emboli from the heart, from the infective myocarditis, they reach the lung and causes the lung abscess. The fourth one is neoplasia. For example, when there is tumor in the lung, either primary of the lung origin or secondary. So this tumor causes obstruction, which then leads to stasis along with the bacterial superinfection. So it causes lung abscess. And there are certain miscellaneous causes. For example, when there is infection of the vertebrae or the pleura or the subphrenic abscess, which directly involves the lung parenchyma. So when all these causes of the lung abscess are included and still the causative area or the causative the mechanism is not known, so that is called primary cryptogenic lung abscess. When these causes are, all the above causes are excluded and no obvious cause is found, it is called primary cryptogenic lung abscess. Lastly, the pneumonia in immunocompromised host. So patients who are on chemotherapy or who are on radiations for certain tumors, or who are on immunosuppressives or immunosuppressive therapy for organ or hematopoietic stem cell transplant, they are immunocompromised. So there are certain organisms which cause pneumonia in such patients more as compared to normal individuals, like Pseudomonas is the commonest bacteria, cytomegalovirus is the commonest virus, and Pneumocystis jirovecii is the commonest fungus, along with the Cryptococcus, which cause pneumonia in immunocompromised hosts. The second is the pathophysiology of tuberculosis. You see, it's a Pulmonary tuberculosis is the lung infection which is caused by Mycobacterium tuberculosis. It is a type of delayed hypersensitivity. Like hypersensitivity has 4 types: the type 1, 2, 3, and 4. So it is a type 4, fourth type of delayed hypersensitivity. It was diagnosed by injecting a purified protein derivative subdermally, and this derivative then causes wheal and flare formation in that area about 48 to 72 hours after the injection. So this positive cell test, it signifies that the T cell mediated immunity is present but does not differentiate between infection and active disease. Secondly, there are false positive and negative results in this MON2 test, which is also called tuberculin test. False positive, it can be due to previous BCG injection, and false negative, it can be due to an immunocompromised host. So if in immunocompromised patients, if you inject this PPD subdermally, so although they will be infected by tuberculosis, but there will be no wheal and flare formation in such patients. जी
सर फॉल्स पॉजिटिव और फॉल्स नेगेटिव किस तरह होगा?
फॉल्स पॉजिटिव, ये फॉल्स नेगेटिव मींस दैट आपके पास पेशेंट पॉजिटिव है लेकिन रिजल्ट आपके पास नेगेटिव आ रहा है. दिस मींस फॉल्स नेगेटिव. फॉल्स पॉजिटिव मींस कि पेशेंट आपके पास नेगेटिव है, उसे इन्फेक्शन नहीं है ट्यूबरकुलोसिस, लेकिन वो आपको टेस्ट जो आपने MON2 टेस्ट किया वो आपको पॉजिटिव आ रहा है. फॉल्स पॉजिटिव मतलब पॉजिटिव है नहीं लेकिन पॉजिटिव आ रहा है, नेगेटिव है नहीं लेकिन नेगेटिव आ रहा है. दिस इज फॉल्स पॉजिटिव एंड फॉल्स नेगेटिव. नाउ यू
इसका रीजन क्या है?
फॉल्स पॉजिटिव, लाइक सपोज ये इनिशियल BCG इंजेक्शन जब लग जाता है आपको, तो उसमें तो आपको बोविन ट्यूबरकुलस जो बैक्टीरिया है वो आपको दिया जाता है. सो उसमें तो वो आपको इम्यूनिटी तो क्रिएट कर देता है ना, आपको इन्फेक्शन तो नहीं हुआ लेकिन इम्यूनिटी तो डेवलप हो गई. लाइक अभी करंटली जो है आपको जो कोविड-19 हो रहा है, इसकी जो आपको ये इन्फेक्शन हो जाता है, तो इन्फेक्शन से पहले भी अगर सपोज आपने इसकी वो कर दी, ये वैक्सीन लगवा दी, तो ये वैक्सीन आपको एंटीबॉडी डेवलप तो करेगी ना. एंटीबॉडी डेवलप होगी, सो उसके बाद आपका टेस्ट भी पॉजिटिव आ जाए, दैट इज कॉल्ड ट्रू पॉजिटिव. लेकिन अगर आपको इन्फेक्शन है, PCR पे आपको इन्फेक्शन आ रहा है लेकिन एंटीबॉडीज आपकी नहीं शो हो रही, तो इसका मतलब है कि दिस इज फॉल्स नेगेटिव. सो फॉल्स पॉजिटिव में आपको प्रीवियस BCG इंजेक्शन लग जाता है, उसके बाद आपको आ रहा होता है कि भाई ये पॉजिटिव है, तो इसका मतलब ये नहीं है कि आपको ट्यूबरकुलोसिस है. इट मींस that it is due to previous BCG injection, previous immunization. Similarly, false negative patients, immunocompromised patients हैं, तो these immunocompromised patients, इनमें अगर आप ट्यूबरकुलिन या ये MON2 टेस्ट करेंगे तो उसमें आपको ये सेल मीडिएटेड इम्यूनिटी, जो कि immunocompromised है, इम्यूनिटी डेवलप नहीं होती, तो ये आपको टेस्ट नेगेटिव शो होगा, although the patient will be positive for tuberculosis. Now you understand?
Yes sir, thank you.
जी
टेस्ट सर दोबारा बताएं कैसे होता है?
टेस्ट जो है ये इसे MON2 टेस्ट भी कहते हैं, PPD भी कहते हैं, और ट्यूबरकुलिन भी कहते हैं. 3 टेस्ट हैं. नाउअडेज तो यूज नहीं होते, ऐसे क्लिनिकली डायग्नोज करते हैं, क्लिनिकली एंड कल्चर ट्यूबरकुलोसिस डायग्नोज होता है अलॉन्ग विद द PCR. लेकिन प्रीवियसली ये MON2 टेस्ट इंट्राडर्मल इंजेक्शन देते थे, प्यूरिफाइड प्रोटीन डेरिवेटिव. सो दिस कॉल्ड MON2 टेस्ट. तो आप ये इंजेक्शन लगाए, उसके पेशेंट को वहां पे हम इनसर्कल कर देते थे जिस एरिया पे इंजेक्शन लगा होता था. सो आफ्टर 48 to 72 आवर्स वहां पे रेडनेस और स्वेलिंग हो जाती थी उस एरिया, so that will be considered positive. So this is MON2 test और PPD test और tuberculin test. ठीक. The natural history and spectrum of tuberculosis. So the primary tuberculosis infection, in most cases, like in healthy individual, if they acquired tuberculosis infection, most 90 to 95% cases of these infections, the lung parenchyma, they are healed, but some of them in some of these patients, the organisms become dormant. These patients are called these areas or these lesions are called latent lesions, or in some cases, this primary infection then progresses to progressive primary tuberculosis, in which there is massive hematogenous dissemination of different organs like involvement of the liver or involvement of the spleen. So primary infection, tuberculosis infection, most cases it will be healed, some of them become latent and some of them progress to primary TB. In secondary tuberculosis, it is either due to reactivation of the virus which was initially dormant from the primary infection, or it can be reinfection external environment. So this secondary tuberculosis, it can progress to pulmonary progressive secondary tuberculosis, or it can cause just localized damage. This is the pathogenesis of tuberculosis. Like you see, these are the two organisms. These are the rod-shaped bacteria. They bind to these macrophages by mannose binding receptor. They enter into the cytoplasm. There they enter into the phagosome, and in the phagosome, it causes maturation arrest of the phagosome. It means that this phagosome will not fuse with the lysosome. So there will be ineffective phagolysosome formation. In this state, there will be rapid proliferation of these bacteria inside the macrophages. But after 3 weeks, when the immunity is developed, so these alveolar macrophages, they will present the antigens from these processed bacteria to the T cells, T helper 1 cells. They present the antigens, and by secreting interleukin 12 of macrophages, this interleukin 12 causes activation of the T cell to convert these T cells into the T helper cells. This T helper cells then secretes gamma interferon. This gamma interferon will then act on the activated macrophages. The macrophages, they will act on macrophages which contain these bacilli, and in these macrophages, this gamma interferon then causes increased nitric acid production, increased free radical formation, and fusion of the phagolysosome. So when all these three things occur, nitric acid formation, nitric oxide formation, reactive oxygen species formation, and along with the phagolysosomal fusion, so these three steps, this will limit the bacteria to the macrophages and prevents its dissemination to the outside of the lung parenchyma. Secondly, these activated macrophages then further secrete certain factors which are called chemokines and tumor necrosis factors. It is this tumor necrosis factors which causes the weight loss and the fever and the malaise in such patients. Along with the chemokines, these chemokines then they attract the other inflammatory cells, which then further causes activation of the macrophages, and this results in the control of this tuberculosis. Another important thing is that the primary tuberculosis, it classically involves the upper portion of it classically involves the lower portion of the upper lobe or the upper portion of the lower lobe. But secondary tuberculosis, it classically involves the apex of the upper lobe. This is on the left side, you see the gross picture of the lung, and in the center you see this is the hilum, which contains bronchi and bronchioles, and above you see a yellowish spot. This is the infected lymph node, the hilar lymph nodes, which is infected. And on the periphery of this lung parenchyma, you see some further other yellow spots. This is the infection of the lung parenchyma. So just when the lymph nodes are not involved, just this localized infection, it is called gone focus. But when the lymph nodes are also involved along with this lung parenchyma, then these two lesions, they are collectively called Ghon's complex. And Ranke complex is that after when the immunity develops, the infection become localized, and after some weeks, it is calcified. So this calcification of the Ghon's complex, it is called Ranke complex, which is detected radiologically, and you see the radiological picture of the same patient. This is the arrowhead. It shows the calcified lymph node, which is the hilar lymph node, and the arrow below shows the calcified Ghon's focus of the lung parenchyma.
सर गोल फोकस क्या है?
Ghon's focus है it is the localized infection of the lung parenchyma by tuberculosis. Like gross picture में आप देख रहे हैं, just सिर्फ infection हुआ है, अभी lymph node involved नहीं हुए. It is called Ghon's focus. इस इन्फेक्शन लंग पेरेन्केमा के साथ जब लिम्फ नोड भी ट्यूबरकुलोसिस से इन्वॉल्व हो जाए, दैट इज कॉल्ड गॉन्स कॉम्प्लेक्स. ठीक है. और ये गॉन्स कॉम्प्लेक्स जब कैल्सिफाई हो जाए आफ्टर सम टाइम, जब इम्यूनिटी डेवलप हो जाए, तो उसे कहते हैं रैंकी कॉम्प्लेक्स. Histological, on the right side, this pink picture you see, this is the histological picture of granulomas, which you see on the of this. You see this picture in the by staining the tissue with hematoxylin and leucine stain. You see in the central area, you see the pink. This is the caseous necrosis. Surrounding this pink area, you see the elongated thin cells. These are the activated macrophages, and just lower left to this picture, you see this is the multinucleated giant cell with a multiple nuclei at the periphery of cytoplasm. This is called Langhans type giant cells. And surrounding these epithelioid histiocyte, you see these dark blue or black spots. These are the lymphocytes. So this is the picture of a granuloma. If you apply a special stain, Ziehl-Neelsen stain on such tissue sections, you will identify these rod-shaped bacilli of the Mycobacterium tuberculosis. So special stain for tuberculosis is Ziehl-Neelsen stain, and special stain for the fungus is GMS and PAS. GMS Gomori methenamine, आपको picture भी दिखाई थी last slide में. So GMS stain for fungus and Ziehl-Neelsen stain, ZN stain for the tuberculosis. Sometimes when this primary or secondary pulmonary tuberculosis, it is not controlled, especially in the immunocompromised patients. It involves not only involves the whole of the lung parenchyma, but also the other organs. Like histologically, like you see in the upper X-ray picture of the patient, you see small dots which involves the whole of the lung tissue. This is called मिलेरी पल्मोनरी टीबी. मिलेरी मिलेट सीड्स, बाजरा जो होता है, बाजरे की सीड्स जस्ट लाइक उनकी तरह इसकी पिक्चर हो जाती है. एंड जस्ट लोअर टू दिस एक्सरे इज द पिक्चर. दिस इज द स्प्लीन पिक्चर. ये स्प्लीन है. यू सी द स्मॉल येलोइश डॉट्स. दिस इज द मिलेरी ट्यूबरकुलस ऑफ द स्प्लीन. एंड जस्ट लेफ्ट साइड पे तो ये तो बाजरे की सीड्स, आपको जस्ट फॉर कंपैरिजन. सो मिलेरी पल्मोनरी डिजीज, when there is multiple small patchy involvement of both lobes of lung parenchyma, or miliary extrapulmonary disease of different organs. Either it can be a spleen or renal or brain or other tissues. Other complications includes the inflammation of the pleura along with the pleural effusion. When there is fluid accumulation between the visceral and parietal pleura, it is called pleural effusion. Other complications are empyema, pus formation in the pleural cavity, or like involvement of the lymph nodes, involvement of the other organs. And Pott's disease, it is the tuberculous involvement of the vertebra. Tuberculous involvement of vertebra is called Pott's disease. Similarly, there is isolated tuberculosis of the brain, which is called like tuberculous meningitis, or like fallopian tubes, जिसे tuberculous salpingitis कहते हैं, or the adrenal tissue, tuberculous adrenalitis, chronic adrenal inflammation जो होती है, ठीक है, और intestinal tuberculosis.
सर पोर्ट डिजीज
POTS disease is POTS is the tuberculous infection of the वर्टिब्रा स्पाइन जो है वर्टिब्रा उसकी ट्यूबरकुलोसिस हो जाती है, दैट इज कॉल्ड पॉट्स डिजीज। जी
सर, ये किसी और ऑर्गन में डेवलप होने के लिए ट्यूबरकुलोसिस तो पहले लंग्स में जरूरी है या फिर वो वैसे
इसमें पेशेंट पे डिपेंड करता है। मोस्टली फर्स्ट का चूंकि ट्यूबरकुलस का जो बैक्टीरिया है इट इज एन एयरबॉर्न, सो एयरबॉर्न जब होगा तो इट फर्स्ट या तो इंटेस्टिनल इनिशियल या तो इंटेस्टिनल ट्यूबरकुलोसिस होगी या पल्मोनरी ट्यूबरकुलोसिस होगी। फर्स्ट यही दो ट्यूबरकुलोसिस होंगी, लेकिन डिपेंडिंग ऑन पेशेंट जरूरी नहीं है कि पेशेंट आपको पल्मोनरी ट्यूबरकुलोसिस ही मतलब प्रेजेंट करे। लाइक सपोज एक पेशेंट है उसको इनिशियली हो गई है लेकिन पल्मोनरी डेवलप होंगे। फॉर एग्जांपल जब वर्टिब्रा को इन्फेक्शन हो गई है तो उसके बाद इन्फेक्शन वर्टिब्रा पेन वगैरह जो होंगे उसको, तो वर्टिब्रल पेन्स फर्स्ट डेवलप उसके बाद पल्मोनरी सिम्पटम्स डेवलप होंगे। तो जो भी है और एरियाज की जो ट्यूबरकुलोसिस है सेकेंडरी टू लंग या इंटेस्टाइन ही हो, लेकिन प्रेजेंट लंग के बाद ही हो, लंग से पहले भी बाकी एरियाज में प्रेजेंट कर सकता है। ठीक है, the third one is asthma. So asthma, it is the episodic bronchoconstriction of the bronchi along with the inflammation, along with the bronchial secretion. That is caused by an immunological reaction in genetically susceptible hosts. So episodic bronchoconstriction along with the inflammation, bronchial secretion, logical reaction in genetically susceptible hosts. So asthma, it is a recurrent episodes of wheezing, breathlessness, chest tightness, cough, particularly at night or in the early morning. The triggers for infections, exposure to certain irritants like certain irritant gases, or cold air, or stress, or exercise. Classification, according to allergen or allergen sensation, it can be atopic or non-atopic, or according to the triggers, asthma can be seasonal, exercise-induced, drug-induced, and occupational. स्लाइड्स आपको फिर मैं लास्ट नाइट ट्राई कर रहा था, ये चूंकि इसमें पिक्चर्स हैं तो हेवी प्रेजेंटेशन अपलोड नहीं हो रही थी। आई विल अपलोड, ये आपको सिर्फ अभी फिलहाल सिर्फ समझे, ये स्लाइड इंशाल्लाह मैं सारी एक लेक्चर में सेपरेट फर्स्ट ईयर फोल्डर में मैं ये अपलोड कर दूंगा। ठीक है, so a classic example of type 1 hypersensitivity, like tuberculosis was an example of type 4 hypersensitivity, delayed hypersensitivity, and atopic asthma is it's an example of type 1 sensitivity. It begins in childhood. There will be positive family history of that patient, and if you inject allergen into the subdermally, just like tuberculosis, if you inject subdermally purified allergen in such patient, there will be wheal and flare formation. In contrast to atopic asthma, the non-atopic asthma, there will be no evidence of allergen sensitization. The skin test will be negative with no wheal and flare formation with the family history. And in atopic asthma, the triggers will be mostly like exercise or stress or other things, etc. But in non, the triggers will be mainly respiratory infection. Drug-induced asthma, it is the asthmatic attacks which occur in patients. It's called aspirin-sensitive asthma. So the mechanism of action of drug-induced asthma is that this aspirin or other non-steroidal anti-inflammatory agents, NSAIDs. They inhibit cyclooxygenase pathway of arachnoid acid metabolism. So inhibition of cyclooxygenase result in decreased prostaglandin E2. So normally, prostaglandin E2, it inhibits the enzyme which generates the inflammatory mediators, which then cause the asthma. So normal function of prostaglandin E2 is inhibition of the enzymes which generate pro-inflammatory mediators and cause asthma. So when there is inhibition of cyclooxygenase, there will be decrease in prostaglandin E2, and there will be no inhibition of these enzymes, which then generates more pro-inflammatory mediators and cause asthma in such patients. Occupational asthma, it is triggered by fumes or organic agents and chemical dusts or gases. The mechanism of action of asthma, it is again type 1 hypersensitivity reaction. We will discuss the pathogenesis of asthma in the next slide. So asthma, it is the T helper 2 response. Like in the previous slides of the tuberculosis, that was a T helper 1 response. Asthma is a T helper 2 response and Ig response to environmental allergens in genetically predisposed individuals. Like this picture, this is the pathogenesis of asthma. Just the top left of slide, you see the normal airway. You see the thin mucus, the small number of goblet cells, the green cells. Just below this epithelium, you see the thin basement membrane. There, just below the basement membrane, there are few inflammatory cells and vessels. And below this lamina propria, you see the thin smooth muscle. And below smooth muscle, you see the small number of mucus glands. This is a normal airway. Just right to this picture, you see the airway in asthma. So you see the production of mucus is increased. The number of goblet cells, these green cells in the epithelium, these cup-shaped cells, they are increased. Just below the basement membrane, thickness is increased. The inflammatory cells in the lamina propria are increased. The smooth muscle thickness is increased, and the number of mucus glands are increased. So these are all the morphological features of the asthma. Just right to the this slide. This is the pathogenesis of asthma. You see the pollen or any allergen, it reaches the respiratory epithelium. It is taken by the dendritic cell. This dendritic cell present this antigen to the helper T cells. These helper T2 cells, they are activated, and then they secrete certain factors. For example, initially first they secrete interleukin 4. This interleukin 4 then acts on the B cells, which are activated and secrete IgE antibodies. These IgE antibodies then they are attached to the Fc receptors on the mast cells. This cross-linking of these antibodies with one another results in activation of mast cells, which then release certain mediators. And secondly, you see above the T2 helper cells, it also secretes interleukin 3 and 5 and granulocyte monocyte colony stimulating factors. They act on the eosinophil, which causes eosinophilic recruitment and its activation. So these mast cells mediators, when they are increased, these mediators then act on the vagal nerves which are present in the lamina propria and cause the bronchoconstriction. So this is the mechanism of bronchoconstriction. The mediators from the mast cell release, they act on the vagal nerves. Secondly, these mediators then causes the recruitment of more type T helper 2 cells. There will be more interleukin formation, secretion, more antibody production, and more eosinophilic recruitment. These eosinophils, like in the right lower corner, you see they secrete, eosinophil secretes two factors: major basic protein and eosinophil cationic protein. These two proteins, they act on the epithelium and cause the epithelial damage. So when the epithelium is damaged, normally this epithelium contains cilia, which then results in the removal of the mucus from these epithelium from the airways. So when these epithelium are damaged, the mucus production is increased by direct activation of the goblet cells. So this mucus ends, then it engorges the airways and results in the difficulty in breathing. So interleukin 4 simulates IgE production. Interleukin 5 activates eosinophils. Interleukin 13 activates the mucus secretion and IgE. There are two types of responses in its mechanism. One is the early phase response, and the second is the late phase response or late phase reaction. The early phase reaction, its characteristics are initially bronchoconstriction, the mucus production, vasodilation, and vascular permeability. So it is the early response, and it is due to the mediators which are released from the mast cells. But later on, with time, when there is recruitment of more eosinophils and more T helper 2 cells and other inflammatory cells, which then further secretes cytokines and chemokines. So that phase is called late phase reaction. So in early phase reaction, there will be bronchoconstriction, increased mucus production, vasodilation, and vascular permeability. While in late phase reaction, you see the hypertrophy of smooth muscles, like in this picture, you see hypertrophy of the smooth muscle, the hypertrophy of the basement membrane, the increased mucus glands production, increased number and the increased size of the mucus glands, increased number of the goblet cells, and increased number of inflammatory cells. So this is the late phase reaction. ये बस पल्मोनरी एडिमा इतना इंपॉर्टेंट नहीं है, उसमें स्लाइड्स में फिर आप देख लें, 2-3 स्लाइड्स हैं, मैं ज़रा ये 2-3 स्लाइड्स इस्तेमाल की एक्सप्लेन कर देता हूँ, उसके बाद फिर इंशाल्लाह क्लास एंड है. Genetic, like I already discussed that asthma is due to allergic sensitization in genetically susceptible individuals. So genetic susceptibility in such patients, it is due to polymorphisms in certain genes which are involved in the pathogenesis of asthma. Polymorphisms means they are variation in the normal genes which are present in the population. This is called polymorphism. For example, in point 4, you see the ADAM33. It is the metalloproteinase gene, and its polymorphisms in this gene, they are associated with increased smooth muscle proliferation. So this increased smooth muscle proliferation, you see it's a characteristic of asthma. So the polymorphism in ADAM33 genes, it is associated with it is linked with the pathogenesis of asthma. Similarly, the beta-2 adrenergic receptor genes, so variations in this gene, they are associated with hyper respiratory airway hyperresponsiveness, and you see in asthma there is hyperresponsive of the bronchi and bronchioles. So these genetic susceptibles, those patients which have polymorphisms of beta-2 adrenergic receptor genes or polymorphisms of the ADAM33 and other genes, they are more genetically susceptible as compared to those individuals which do not have these polymorphisms. जी जी टॉपिक उससे तो काफी स्लाइड्स उससे ऊपर गुजर चुकी हैं. Topic and atopic and non-atopic, the difference is then atopic usually it is due to sensitization due to certain environmental allergens. There will be positive family history of asthma in such patients. There will be positive tuberculin test in atopic asthma. And the triggers in atopic asthma will be like stress or cold or exercise they induced. While non-atopic asthma, it is due to respiratory infection. The trigger will be respiratory infection. There will be no family history, and there is no allergic sensitization, and there will be negative skin test. Okay. This is the last slide. The class is ending, so 2-3 minutes left. The morphology of asthma. You see the upper right corner of the picture, you see this elongated pink material. So this is the cytological preparation of the sputum from asthmatic patients. These are called Crustman spirals. These are the elongated mucus strands which are produced by the increased number of the mucus cells in asthma. Just below this picture, you see these elongated pink crystals. These are called Charcot-Leyden crystals. These crystals are made up of galactine, which is an eosinophilic protein. And just below, this is the histological picture of the bronchiole in asthmatic patients. And you see the basement membrane, this pink material just below the epithelium, it is thickened. Just below the basement membrane, you see a large number of inflammatory cells. And just below this lamina propria, you see this hypertrophy of the smooth muscle. This pink area, elongated cell, this is the smooth muscle. So this is the histological pictures of the asthma. So in morphologically in asthma, there will be thickening of the airway wall. There will be sub-basement membrane fibrosis. There will be increased number of vessels, increased number of goblet cells and glands, and hypertrophy and hyperplasia of the bronchial smooth muscle. Okay, thank you. Assalamu alaikum.
Excuse me, sir.
जी
मेरी क्वेश्चन है
जी जी
सर, आपने जो पॉलीमॉर्फिज्म के बारे में बताया, तो ये जितनी पॉलीमॉर्फिज्म थी, ये नॉर्मल हो गया या फिर
नहीं, नॉर्मल